Today we're going to be talking about minor scales. Now remember, a scale is just a set of pitches that we use to write our music. It's kind of like choosing the colors for a palette that you want to use to paint a picture. Now if I continue that analogy of choosing colors, now you might think of major keys as the brighter colors, the reds or the yellows or the bright greens, while the minor scales are going to be the more blues and purples. A lot of times we say that major is happy while minor is sad, but that's not actually true. A lot of minor songs can be really happy and upbeat, while major songs can be downer sometimes. In fact, it can actually be really effective to write songs this way, to pair a happy lyric or an upbeat lyric with a darker scale that you're going with, a more minor scale, and vice versa. It can actually create a really cool effect. So to start building our minor scales, we need to start with a major scale. Now I've already made a video about major scales and how to build them, and you can check that out over here. But for now, let's just talk about the major scale and look at the pattern of whole steps and half steps we have. So if I put up my C major scale here and I start over here with my C, I'm going to start with C and I'm going to go up a whole step and then another whole step and then a half step to F and then a whole step to G and then A is another whole step to B, and then a half step there at the end. Now that's the pattern of whole steps and half steps that makes this sound like a major scale. But guess what? The minor scale is already hidden inside of this major scale. If we take this major scale that we already have and we start at C and count over to the 6th scale degree and then make that our new tonic or our new starting note, then we're going to end up with a minor scale. So the 6th scale degree of C major is A. So if I take all of these notes and rearrange them so A is my new tonic, it's my new starting note over here, then I now have a natural minor scale. Now notice I call this a natural minor scale because there's actually different forms of minor. We're going to talk about that later. So now back to A minor. A minor and C major are what we call relative keys. We call them relative keys because they have all of the same notes. They share the same key signature. If we look on the circle of fifths, they share the same spot on the circle. To find the relative minor of any key, we're just going to start with the tonic of the major key and count up 6 notes. That 6th scale degree is going to become our new tonic. Now, if you're trying to go backwards the opposite way, you're going to start with the tonic of your minor key and then count up 3 notes to the 3rd scale degree, and that's going to be your new tonic in the major key. So with A minor, if I start with A and count up A, B, C, C is going to be the tonic of the relative major. So with my minor scale here, let's take a look at the pattern of whole steps and half steps that we have because it's different from what the major scale was. In this new minor scale that I have, the pattern of whole steps and half steps is going to be whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, half step, whole step, whole step. Once we know that, we can build a minor scale off of any note. We can start here on G and we can go up 1 whole step, which is going to take us to A, and then a half step, which will go to B flat. A whole step up from that will be C. A whole step up from that is D. And then we have to do a half step. A half step would be E flat. A whole step up from E flat is F. 1 more whole step will take us to G. Now just for fun, let's take C and let's build a minor scale off of C. So if I start with C and go up 1 whole step, it's going to take me to D. D up a half step would be E flat, then a whole step would be F, then G, then A flat because we have to put in our half step there. And then from A flat to B flat is a whole step, and B flat to C, back to C on our tonic, that's another whole step. Now let's take that C minor scale and let's compare it to C major. C major we know has no sharps and flats. C minor we now know has 3 flats. E flat, A flat, and B flat. If you compare these two scales, how did we get from C major to C minor? We took the 3rd, the 6th, and the 7th scale degrees and we lowered them all down 1 half step. Now can we take that and apply it to other scales? Of course. We can take that and apply it to any major scale. If you take any major scale and you lower the 3rd, the 6th, and the 7th scale degrees, you're going to end up with the parallel minor. Parallel meaning they have the same tonic, but they're going to have a different key signature. On the circle, they're not in the same spot. By the way, you don't even need to know what the 3rd, 6th, and 7th scale degrees are. All you need to know is the key signature of the major key. If you know the key signature of the major key, you're just going to add 3 flats to whatever that is. So if I look at the key of G major, that has 1 sharp. If I add 3 flats, one of those flats is going to cancel out the sharp. The other 2 flats are just going to stay in the key signature. And so you're going to end up with G minor having 2 flats in the key signature. And if I check my circle of fifths, it works. And you can see how this works on the circle of fifths because the minors on the inside are just shifted over 3 spots to the left. And remember, on the circle of fifths, when we go 1 spot to the left, we're either adding a flat or taking away a sharp. That's why this works. Okay, so let's go back to our original C minor scale that we just had. Remember, I called this a natural minor scale. The natural minor scale has a little bit of a problem with it. When I play a major scale, I have a half step between the 7th scale degree and the tonic. So it sounds like this. There's that leading tone, and it really wants to resolve up to that tonic. It just really wants that resolution. And so we call it a leading tone because it leads us into the tonic. A natural minor scale doesn't have that. So if I play my C minor, it sounds like this. If I just leave it there, you're not feeling that strong push to go back to tonic right here. It just doesn't have that because that's not a half step there, it's a whole step. When the 7th scale degree is a half step away, we call it a leading tone. When it's a whole step away, we call it a subtonic. We can't call it a leading tone because it doesn't have the same function. And that subtonic kind of dilutes the strength of our tonic. Now, to solve that problem, we can raise the 7th scale degree. So I can play that scale again, and this time raise the 7th scale degree half a step. And now I'm going to get that half step between the 7th and the tonic again. Now that gives us the leading tone, and that pulls us back to tonic, and it's great, except for now we have that step and a half between the 6th and 7th scale degrees. So when I play this scale, it sounds like this. And what does that remind you of? It probably gives you some Aladdin feels or some Arabic feels or Egyptian or Middle Eastern. It just has a very unique sound. Now that's great if that's what you're going for, but maybe that's not really what you're going for. And I want to be clear here, not every harmonic minor song has this sort of feel. There are plenty of songs that don't have this Middle Eastern feel, but that step and a half between the 6th and 7th scale degrees is there. You're going to have to embrace it or you're going to have to work around it. Now there's actually a third type of minor that solves both problems for us. So we call this scale the melodic minor scale. And the melodic minor scale, we're going to raise both the 6th and the 7th scale degrees as we go up. So if I play this, I'm going to have, and that takes us all the way to tonic without giving us that really big gap between scale degree 6 and 7. The problem with this one is that if you compare this scale with a major scale, there's only one note different. The only note that's different is that E flat between C major and C melodic minor, which means we're losing a lot of what makes this sound like a minor scale. We're losing the unique characteristics of minor, and that takes away from why we chose minor in the first place. So with this, we have one more solution. With the melodic minor scale, we're going to raise the 6th and 7th scale degrees going up, but then we're going to lower them back down to the natural minor when we come back down. So it's going to sound like this. It's one of the only scales that I know of, maybe the only one, that is different going up than it is coming down. Now, when you're composing a piece using melodic minor, the problem is that you have to add a lot of accidentals. You're constantly raising that 6th scale degree or lowering it, raising that 7th scale degree or lowering it, and that can get a little confusing and up for interpretation. Am I going to raise it this time? Am I going to lower it? And so sometimes melodic minor is not always the best choice. You kind of have to choose between which minor is going to fit the song that you're writing. Do you want that darker sound that's more ambiguous that you get from natural minor? Do you want that augmented second that you get in the harmonic minor? Do you want the flow that you get from a melodic minor feel? Minor scales can be so cool, and I hope that you play around with them. If you're writing your own music, play around with all 3 types of these scales and just see, where does it fit best? Where do you like hearing the natural minor? Where do you like the harmonic minor? Where does melodic minor work? If you're just learning music, start learning these minor scales and listen for them in the music that you're learning and the music you listen to. They're all over the place. Now, if this video has been helpful to you, please watch some of my other videos and subscribe for more music theory pro tips.